Okay, I'm playing against FIDE master from Poland, Maciej Marszalek. We have a c3 Sicilian Defence. I like transposing to the French defense here, where I can play against the weakness on c3. He goes for queen a4. I think taking on d6 was the better move here, but that's also playable. I have an absolutely dismal score against this opponent, and the problem is that he has a very uncomfortable style, and every time he's losing he plays like he's winning. And I've had at least two games where I had completely winning positions and I wasn't able to convert, so very uncomfortable opponent for me personally. So let's see if we can start turning the tide with this game. h6 to stop knight g5. This is pretty standard in this type of c3 Sicilian. Okay, rook to c8 is a standard move here. I'm also ready to actually exchange queens here, because I can still play against the c3 weakness while my position is completely weakness free. So every time I can get a small plus as black from the opening, I would go for it, even if it involves exchanging queens. So let's blockade this c3 pawn and try and position my pieces in a better way in order to exploit that weakness. I also like harassing his rook here with bishop to a3 and then bishop c6, bishop a4. Yeah, threatening to win the exchange now. Okay, he's attacking the g7 square, that's fine. I think g6 is just fine here, because any sacrifices against g6 are not likely to be successful, because I can run with the king to the queen side. And okay, let's threaten a discovery against the rook. And he has rooks on e2 and f1. He brings another piece into the attack, which is a standard plan for white here. Okay, let's improve the bishop, because he wasn't doing anything on h3, on a3, and it is also kind of a defender as well of the king's side. But now I'm threatening knight to a3, winning the bishop pair, and also how is he going to survive on the light squares here? He might even lose an exchange, because he can't really... he cannot move the knight. And he was losing something for sure, and now he's losing the exchange. But it's better to take the bishop, because I want to completely limit his options for a sacrifice against g6. And the exchange is not running away. I can still win the exchange, so that's fine. Okay, what I'm going to do now is just play h5, g5, and completely take all the squares from his pieces on the king side, and thus limit his possibilities for a king side attack completely. Okay, he's attacking the h5 pawn. That's fine, because after h4 his bishop is completely out of the game, and while he has two attackers against the king side, I also have a lot of defenders, so I don't think he can do anything there. Knight g7. King f8 doesn't work, because he has knight to e6. So after king d7, which is the only move, he can take on f7, but I can still survive this easily after rook to h6. I am completely defended. Also, I am threatening rook to f8, trapping his queen. So he definitely needs to do something about that. I like queen c2 as well, attacking the rook. But if he doesn't try and save the queen, if he doesn't see that he's being trapped, I will just go for rook f8, obviously. So I think he's gonna try and save the queen somehow. Yeah, but now queen c2 and rook f8 is still a viable option. And that's pretty much crushing, because I think the knight is getting trapped somehow as well now. Okay, he goes for this, but then this is completely winning. So let's analyze this quickly. Okay, the computer doesn't like b6, and I think I know why. That's because this gives white the time to implement his standard attacking plan with bishop d3, knight to g5, queen h5. So that's definitely not the right move order. The correct move order, which would have led to, or could have led to a similar position that I got in the game, is d5 if you want to play in the French defense fashion. And even though white is slightly better here, this is fully playable and I have many wins in this position or from this position. Or you can just play with d6, which is also fine, just challenging white's center and just continuing with normal development, and black is fine here. So that is something to keep in mind. Do not start with b6, start with either d5 or d6 here. And yeah, that's something I should definitely remember, because I've fallen so many times for this knight to g5, queen h5 idea. More than I can really count. So, okay, something to keep in mind. Yeah, queen d7 was correct, but there's nothing wrong with rook to c8. I play queen to d7 anyway, and now the computer gives this is better for black already. The funny thing is I probably even have knight takes e5 here, just winning a pawn. For example, what's wrong with this move? The computer actually likes my move better, knight to a5. That's probably because it exchanges the queens while gaining a pawn. But yeah, this should also be good. I think these two moves should be equally good. But from a human perspective, this makes more sense because you're up a pawn. However, the computer prefers knight to a5 here, even g5. So let's see what happened in the game. Knight a5. Yeah, and black is definitely better here because he's not positioned well for a kingside attack anymore. He's wasted 2 moves with the queen, with this queen to a4 idea, which did pretty much nothing. And black should definitely be better here. What's a better move? Yeah, bishop to a3 immediately. He cannot really push c4, so knight to c4 is probably a waste of tempo, so obviously bishop to a3 is better, but anyway. And yeah, this is huge for black already. Computer even gives g5, which makes sense, but I was afraid of weakening my king too much and too early without having any concrete threats against his position. So that's why I didn't do it. But that's also a good move. Let's see what happens after g6. Yeah, and knight to a3 is actually correct. Let's see, I was wondering about this. Can he actually save himself with this move? But apparently not, because the pawn is hanging and I still have my pressure. He's simply down a pawn with no counter-attacking possibilities, and he will actually end up losing something here for sure, because after I take the knight, he only has one defend. After I take the bishop, he has only one defender of the knight, and he's just losing a piece apparently. So yeah, from here onwards, black simply has a winning position, basically. Yeah, and I played this correctly. I was afraid of this as well, that if I do this is still winning, but somehow I was afraid of something like this. But this doesn't make any difference because I just take the other rook, so he's down in exchange. He just needs to capture the bishop somehow, after which, yeah, he's simply down in exchange here. And that's completely winning. The other thing at the end of the game was this, which I thought that he could have played He could have played this move, but I think that the knight is getting trapped as well. Yeah, exactly. Rook to f7 just traps the knight. So he was pretty much lost already. So yeah, anyway, good game. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more games like this, please consider subscribing to the channel.